Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're looking to get past the headlines and into the details, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are strapping in for a really dense, high-stakes look into the 2023 Sustainability and Strategic Report of a true giant in the energy sector.
This is one of the most interesting balancing acts happening anywhere in the world right now. You have a company that is, it's the primary fossil fuel engine for a major national economy.
Right.
But at the same time, they're being tasked with this huge pivot towards, ambitious environmental, social, and governance goals.
The whole ASG or ESG agenda, as we call it.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to go past the glossy photos in the report and really dig into the numbers.
The hard data.
The hard data, the concrete performance, the shifts inside the organization, and the strategic roadmap for 2024 all the way out to 2028 and beyond. We're looking for the proof.
And I think we have to immediately establish the sheer scale of their economic footprint. We're not just talking about corporate profits here.
No, this is way bigger than that.
This is national wealth distribution. Their report confirms that just through their activities in 2023 alone, the company distributed an estimated, get this, $378.7 billion.
Brazilian reais. That's a huge number.
It's staggering.
And to put that in context for you listening, that money wasn't just profit for shareholders. It was paid out to federal, state, and municipal governments in taxes, royalties, to thousands of suppliers, and of course, to their massive workforce.
Which is why their strategic health is so deeply, deeply interwoven with the nation's own financial stability.
It makes every single move a high-stakes decision. Okay, let's jump into segment one, portfolio strategy and the economic engine. The strategic pivot they laid out in 2023 is fascinating because it's not an either-or choice.
No, it's very much an and. They're actively trying to increase oil and gas production while also generating value downstream and identifying low-carbon businesses.
And that tension is everything. How do you increase fossil fuel supply while also trying to decarbonize?
Well, the key operational word in their report, the one that stands out, is profitable. This isn't a mission to just embrace green tech no matter the cost. The low-carbon transition has to be driven by market viability. They're prioritizing partnerships for what they call a just energy transition.
That makes a lot of sense. The transition can't bankrupt the main business.
Of course not.
But if these low-carbon ventures have to be profitable right out of the gate, that suggests a pretty cautious, measured pace, not some radical high-speed shift.
Precisely. It de-risks the whole thing by leveraging the cash flow from the core business. And that cash flow is just enormous. The planned investment for 2024 to 2028 it's a massive $102 billion.
$102 billion. And that's not just for them, is it? How does that translate to the wider economy?
It acts as this immense economic multiplier. The report projects that this investment, this $102 billion, is expected to support 280,000 direct and indirect jobs annually, across the entire national supply chain. So when they talk about a just energy transition, part of that justice is, maintaining employment while the energy mix slowly evolves.
Okay, now let's talk about something that feels very personal to every single driver and business owner out there. Fuel prices. The commercial strategy for setting gasoline and diesel prices, which was approved in May 2023, is complex. We should probably break down the core references they use.
Yeah, this is where we need to translate some of the jargon. They basically use two main reference points. First, they look at the customer alternative cost.
Which is what exactly?
Simply put, if a distributor didn't buy fuel from them, where would they get it and what would that cost? It keeps them competitive against imports.
Okay, so that's the external market side. What about their internal reference?
That's the second point, the marginal value for the company. And this isn't just their production cost, it's the cost of opportunity. Meaning, if they refine crude oil to make gasoline, what's the value they lose by not exporting that crude instead? They price it based on the highest value alternative for that barrel of oil.
So they're constantly balancing domestic supply needs against global export opportunities to get the maximum value?
Exactly.
But here is the critical takeaway for you listening. When you're standing at the pump, the company's price is only one part of what you pay.
It's the part everyone talks about, but it's just the starting price they charge distributors at the refinery gate. Your final price is heavily influenced by factors completely outside their control.
Like what?
Well, taxes, obviously, but also the cost of mandatory fuel blends like ethanol and gasoline or biodiesel and diesel
Yeah, and those prices fluctuate all the time.
all the time, based on agricultural markets. Then you have to add the costs and the margins for the distribution companies and the local reseller stations. It's a chain reaction, and the refinery price is just the first domino.
Let's pivot now to the environmental scorecard, the E in ESG. This is obviously where the company faces the most global scrutiny, and their commitments are very specific.
Very measurable. Their top-line goal is a 30% reduction in absolute operational greenhouse gas emissions GE by 2030, and that's benchmarked against 2015 levels.
Okay, we have to stop there. I mean, there's an inherent contradiction, right? If the strategy is to increase oil and gas production, how can you possibly get an absolute reduction of 30%?
That is the core engineering challenge. The only way to square that circle is through, well, hyper efficiency and huge investments in operational offsets,
So things like reducing flaring, optimizing processes.
and specifically tackling methane. And on methane, which is a much more potent warming gas in the short term, they've actually received the gold standard recognition.
What does that gold standard mean in practical terms?
It's a big deal. It means they were recognized by the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership, OGMP 2.0. This is a UN-convened initiative.
Yeah.
And getting the gold standard signifies that their whole plan for quantifying, reporting, and managing methane meets the highest possible industry standard for transparency.
They're also making moves on what's called Scope 2 emissions.
Right, which is the indirect emission from the electricity they buy off the grid.
And then they're neutralizing that.
They are. In 2023, they neutralized their Scope 2 emissions in Brazil by purchasing 128,000 tons of CO2 equivalent in what are called IREC renewable energy certificates. So they're basically financing renewable energy to offset the grid power they use.
That certificate purchase is one thing, but the internal efficiency gains are, to me, even more striking, especially in water and waste.
Oh, absolutely.
Freshwater intake water pulled from nature. They cut that by over 20% in just 3 years.
It's a huge drop
Yeah.
from 150 million cubic meters in 2021 down to 115 million in 2023. And that's not just from selling off assets.
No, this is internal reuse, better management.
And their goal is even more aggressive.
Right.
A 40% reduction by 2030 against that 2021 baseline. That's a massive environmental win for the regions they operate in.
And we see the same thing with waste, right? The focus
Yeah.
on circularity.
Yes. They achieved 91% reuse, recycling, or recovery RR of their destined waste in 2023.
What does that mean, destined waste?
It's anything they generate that's earmarked for disposal. So getting to 91% RRR means only 9% of their waste actually goes to a landfill. Everything else is brought back into the industrial cycle. You can see the result over time.
How so?
Dangerous, solid waste generation. It's been cut by more than half over the last decade, all because they're reusing things like oily sludge in other parts of the operation.
That's a deep operational shift. But let's get to the exciting part, the product innovation. Tell us about BioRefino and Diesel R.
The BioRefino program is really strategic because it uses their existing refinery infrastructure. They're making Diesel R, which is a renewable diesel made by co-processing.
And the key metric.
The renewable part of this fuel achieves at least a 60% cut in greenhouse gas emissions compared to traditional diesel. And they're scaling it. Capacity to heat 40,000 barrels a day at one refinery.
But the real head turner, the thing that signals where the market might be going, is the Gasolina Podium Carbono Neutro.
Yes, the carbon-neutral gasoline. This is a highly strategic launch. It's the first one in the Brazilian market.
What's so strategic about it?
They are compensating for the entire life cycle of emissions, from the well all the way to your car's exhaust pipe. They do it by buying and retiring very high-quality carbon credits.
So why does the consumer care? Is this just PR?
I don't think so. It's a market test. They're using credits from Brazilian forest preservation projects. By launching this, they're testing if the premium consumer will pay more for a fuel that is verifiably offset.
And if they do?
If they do, it signals that low-carbon products can meet that all-important requirement of being profitable.
That brings us smoothly to safety, because innovation rests on a foundation of asset integrity. Let's talk about leaks.
Right. They recorded 7 oil or derivative leaks greater than 1 barrel in 2023, a total of about 16.9 cubic meters.
Incidents happen.
They do. But the critical factor is managing the impact. The report explicitly states that none of those 7 leaks reached any sensitive biodiversity areas. That's a measurable success for their emergency response.
And the overall trend in safety performance is strong. We look at the total recordable accident rate, the TAR.
And the TAR shows significant continuous progress. It's down from 2.15 back in 2016 to just 0.80.
That's a huge improvement.
For a company running deepwater platforms and massive refineries, driving that metric down by 2/3, that shows a real fundamental commitment to safety.
Moving now to integrity and social governance, the G and the S. We have to start with governance, specifically the shadow of the Operation Lavajato investigations.
And the company has focused heavily on two things: recovery and prevention. On the recovery front, they've had measurable success.
What are the numbers?
The cumulative total of funds recovered and returned to the company, it reached $7.281 billion by the end of 2023.
That's a staggering sum of money. And it's not just about historical accountability, is it?
No, it frees up capital to fund future projects. But it also reveals that the new compliance systems have real teeth, and that recovery is paired with aggressive prevention.
Which is where the supplier vetting comes in, the due diligence of integrity, or DDI.
Exactly. The DDI is this rigorous internal screening process. They assign a risk grade to any potential supplier. In 2023, they assigned 2,370 of these risk grades.
And if you fail?
If a supplier fails the DDI, they don't get the contract. Period. Doesn't matter what their price is, and they keep updating it.
Right.
In October 2023, they added specific assessments on human rights and personal data protection to the questionnaire. Integrity isn't static.
Okay, let's transition to the social side. Diversity and inclusion. They have new measurable targets approved by the board.
These are formal commitments now, baked right into the strategy. For gender equity, the target is 30% women representation across the top bodies, the board, the executive board, and the fiscal council by 2026.
And for racial equity?
There, the target is to increase the indication of Black individuals to those same key decision-making bodies by 10% by 2030. These are not just, aspirational statements. They are metrics.
We should also touch on compensation. The report says there's equal pay for equal jobs, but the overall compensation ratio for women versus men is 0.97. Why the gap?
It points to a really deep structural issue in the industry's history. That small gap is attributed to the historical predominance of men in these special, higher-paid work regimes.
Like offshore platform work.
Exactly. The really intensive operational jobs. It shows that true pay parity needs more than just equal pay for equal jobs. It needs equal access to the highest-paying jobs.
Another critical social program launched in 2023 tackles workplace violence.
Yes, the Program Against Sexual Violence, or PPCVS, it's organized around 4 pillars: strategy, how they handle denunciations, support for victims, and prevention.
And there's a key metric tied to it.
A very important one for building employee trust. They are committing to conclude investigations of sexual violence cases within an average of 60 days by 2024. That focus on speed and clarity is huge.
Finally, let's look at community impact and the workforce transition. They're always managing their portfolio, selling off older assets.
And they're using substantial social investment to manage that. Her $350 million is committed over 4 years to a program called Autonomia y Renda, Autonomy and Income.
And the goal of that program?
It's professional training for the energy sector, but it's explicitly focused on vulnerable groups: the unemployed, women, Black individuals, the LGBTQI APN+ community.
So it connects their need for a skilled workforce with a societal need for inclusion.
It does. And when assets are sold, they commit to giving 4 to 6 months of notice, and they offer employees the option to either stay employed in their home state or take an incentivized severance package. It's a managed process.
So this deep dive has really laid bare the complex identity of this company. They're at a crossroads. This strategy feels incredibly pragmatic.
It is.
They're leveraging core fossil fuel profitability, that $102 billion investment, to finance a necessary but still, uncertain future in low-carbon tech.
Like the diesel R and the carbon-neutral gasoline test.
Exactly. And at the same time, they are aggressively strengthening governance, recovering billions, and advancing real social metrics like diversity.
It shows an organization that understands the immense financial and regulatory risks of just standing still. But this focus on maintaining profitability means they have to constantly replenish their reserves.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought.
The new exploration frontier.
We are talking about the Margem Equatorial, the new deep-water exploration area. It includes blocks like FZA M59, which are, they're considered very environmentally sensitive.
And this is a point of huge public debate because of that perceived risk. The company points to its track record: nearly 3,000 deepwater wells without a major incident.
But this area is different.
The sensitive nature of the equatorial margin demands next-level contingency planning. And the report details the intricate international coordination that's required.
You mean with the neighboring countries?
Exactly. The work they did in 2022 and 2023 with French Guiana, Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados, it's crucial. They established official emergency channels and communication flows far in advance of any drilling.
Why is that regional preparation so critical?
Because a significant oil spill doesn't respect international borders.
Of course.
By creating these formal channels with neighboring sovereign nations, they are preemptively acknowledging that a transboundary risk exists. It forces regional accountability before anything happens. And it raises the core question for you, the listener. How should we weigh the technological capability to manage risk against the environmental risk that's inherent in pursuing energy security in the world's most sensitive new frontiers? That is the sustainability challenge that's going to define the next decade.